Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's commencement lecture. This is the 2021 LL.M commencement lecture at OP Jindal
Excuse me,
Global
ma'am.
University. Yeah,
We are not live yet. I will notify you.
fine. Thank you.
We are live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2021 LL.M commencement lecture from the OP Jindal Global University. We hope all of you are safe and your loved ones are safe as well during these unprecedented times. My name is Dolashri, and I will be moderating today's event on behalf of the Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies at OP Jindal Global University. Thank you for joining us. We have with us Mr. Hayagreev Khaitan, who is the speaker for today's event. The title of the talk today is the state of the corporate legal profession and the evolution of the Indian corporate law firm. Mr. Hayagreev Khaitan will be speaking on this topic in a few minutes. But before that, I'd like to hand over the floor to Professor Srijit, who is the Executive Dean at the Jindal Global Law School, to go ahead with the welcome address. Over to you, Professor Srijit.
Thank you, Professor Dolashri. Good evening, everybody. It's a great occasion. Welcome to the academic year 2021-2022 and to the commencement lecture to welcome the students of the LL.M program. The theme of the commencement lecture is the state of corporate legal profession and the evolution of Indian corporate law firm. The distinguished commencement speaker is Mr. Hayagreev Khaitan, Managing Partner, Khaitan and Company. Globalization has seen the eruption of law firms in India, although they existed prior to that, but only as a tiny heartbeat. It was a new professional culture, which has its own dynamics and ways. Their rise was an inevitability in the wake of liberalization of the economy as a new mode of production. The mobility of capital has come into existence. Market became the site of social production and socialization and political economy, the consciousness. The time also saw the rise of commercial activities and commercial problems thereof. This created a demand for professionals with knowledge of all types of corporate and commercial law. The legal profession in India rose up to the occasion by actualizing the idea of a law firm. Since then, law firms became part of the professional culture in India. Many firms emerged in the centers and peripheries of the country. They existed in a fine typology: big law firms, boutique law firms, virtual firms, LLPs, LLCs, sole partnerships, and general partnerships. Through their individual and collective efforts, the law firms contribute to the global process of integration and mobility. These law firms, by their status and role, became an imagination in the minds of students. They also became the means for mastering the skills inter alia in drafting, heuristics, dispute avoidance, and dispute settlement and advising. In the commencement lecture, I'm sure we'll get to know more about the evolutionary tale of law firms in India, their anatomy, their role in social and cultural production, the professional culture therein, values, mores, ethics, and many more. I have the great pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. Hayagreev Khaitan, Managing Partner, Khaitan and Company, the commencement speaker of the day. I also extend a warm welcome to Professor C. Rajkumar, my Dean and the founding Vice Chancellor, OP Jindal Global University. Professor Sridhar Patnaik, Registrar, OP Jindal Global University, Professor Vishwas Devaya, Vice Dean of the Law School and Director, Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, Professor Anand Mishra, Associate Dean of the Law School and Director, Law Admissions, OP Jindal Global University, my dearest students, their parents and well-wishers, my distinguished colleagues at the law school, and everyone connected to us through our YouTube and Facebook channel. Welcome everyone to the commencement lecture, and to the students, welcome to JGLS and to the postgraduate legal studies. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Professor Srijit. May I now request Professor Rajkumar to please provide the commencement lecture, to start with the commencement lecture. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dolashri and Srijit, for that introduction. It's indeed a very special moment for us in the beginning of the academic year. I want to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speaker today, Mr. Hayagreev Khaitan, the Managing Partner of Khaitan and Company. Before I formally introduce him to our august audience, let me take this opportunity to congratulate the students who have enrolled into the Master of Laws program at Jindal Global Law School of OP Jindal Global University. In fact, this is a very special moment because of the fact that we are continuing with the pandemic, but then also have taken a decision, just as all of you have, that the learning process shall remain uninterrupted. Our academic session will be beginning for the first year students on 16th August, which is few days from now. Although I believe that the elective courses that are available for the Masters of Law students have already will be beginning as early as 2nd August 2021. I want to congratulate the students of LL.M, not only because of the fact that they have enrolled at Jindal Global Law School, but they have pretty much overcome the challenges of the last year. If they were doing their LLB courses across the country and beyond, they did that during the pandemic. They decided not to be affected by the pandemic in the sense that they have decided to choose the pursuit of higher education and have enrolled themselves into the Master of Laws program. Let me begin by saying that the decision to join the LL.M program is one of the best decisions I believe you have taken. First of all, I strongly believe that there is a need for developing a stronger intellectual expertise and advanced study in the context in which we are pursuing the study of law. Second, while many of you may have done law from some of the leading law schools across the country, the fact remains that the opportunity to specialize in a particular area of law, as many of you may be doing, be it in corporate and financial law or trade and investment law or intellectual property rights or any other such branch of law that the LL.M program offers, or to pursue a general LL.M program, this is an opportunity for you to pursue that, because things that you may not have done in the course of your foundational law degree, this is an opportunity to specialize yourself. The third, that you have chosen to study at Jindal Global Law School. Jindal Global Law School is an outstanding institution with over 470 full-time faculty members from 25 countries in the world. The law school itself has been consistently ranked as India's #1 law school, and this year has been very special with the law school breaking into the global rankings to be ranked as number 76 in the world, one and only law school in the whole of South Asia which has been ranked among the top 300 and indeed top 100 in the world, among the 20,000 law schools that are there approximately in the world. So these are very important milestones that Jindal Global Law School has reached, and I'm very delighted that you have agreed to be part of it. The LL.M program itself is very special because historically, the Indian law schools have unfortunately neglected the Master of Laws study program. It has not provided not only this kind of pedagogy that is needed, but also the kind of attention that a sound LL.M program needs. I am privileged to have studied 2 masters in law program, one from the University of Oxford, another from the Harvard Law School. And I can say that both those programs helped me significantly develop not only interest in law, but also in the kind of areas of specialization that I chose to do in the latter part of my life. We take our LL.M program very seriously. The Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, under the overall leadership of Professor Vishwas Devaya, and also other colleagues, including Dolashri, who is present here, but also under the leadership of the Executive Dean of the Jindal Global Law School, Professor Srijit, in many ways has created an institutional architecture that will ensure that the LL.M program, its faculty, its curriculum, its courses, its programs, its interdisciplinary ecosystem that we prevail, the students of LL.M get the full benefit of it. Now, let me move to the special nature of this occasion today. It has been established as a tradition at Jindal Global Law School and OP Jindal Global University that we begin the academic session with a commencement lecture delivered by a distinguished individual for each program. I am very privileged to introduce my dear friend and somebody who has been part of our journey, Mr. Haigreve Ketan. Mr. Haigreve Ketan is the managing partner of Ketan and Company and leads the firm's corporate M&A and private equity practices. He is an elected member of the National Executive Committee of the firm, which is responsible for the firm's strategic growth and development. He's also one of the co-founders of the firm's Mumbai office. He advises companies, board of directors, and financial institutions on a wide range of corporate matters, including mergers and acquisitions, private equity investments, corporate governance, corporate restructuring, and other corporate and securities laws matters. Mr. Ketan has been involved in some of the most high-profile and complex M&A and private equity transactions in India and is sought after for his expertise by some of the most prominent Indian promoters, Indian and international companies, Indian regulatory agencies, as well as some of the largest global funds which have invested in India. He advises a range of large Indian conglomerates and multinational clients in various business sectors, including financial services, manufacturing, retail, infrastructure, steel, software, and information technology. A well-known name in India's legal industry, Mr. Ketan is counted among the top lawyers of the country. More than this extraordinary journey that Mr. Ketan has had, I must say that he's one of the very dear friends of Jindal Global Law School and OP Jindal Global University. At an early stage of our evolution, we are barely 12 years old, Mr. Ketan was one among the very few individuals who decided to support us, who believed in our vision, who contributed significantly, and who actually ended up being one of our early advocates as an institution. He actually delivered one of the commencement lectures on campus, probably in the first 3 years of our founding, and since then has been actively associated with the Jindal Global Law School and OP Jindal Global University. I am grateful to him for his belief and faith in our institution. I am thankful to him for his overall leadership in advancing the cause of maintaining highest standards in the legal profession. I am also particularly happy that he remains connected with our law school and our university. With those words, I would like to once again extend all of you to the commencement lecture of Jindal Global Law School's LL.M program. Before we formally invite Mr. Ketan, I'm going to invite Professor Anand Prakash Mishra, the Director of Law School Admissions and Associate Dean of Jindal Global Law School, to introduce the LL.M incoming class of 2021. Anand, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, our Vice Chancellor, Professor C. Rajkumar. I'm indeed extremely delighted to welcome our chief guest, Mr. Haigreve Ketan, who indeed needs no introduction, one of the leaders of Indian corporate law practice, known globally. I'm extremely proud and privileged, and it's my honor to introduce this amazing class of LL.M 2021-2022 to our chief guest, to our Vice Chancellor, to our Executive Dean, to Registrar, our faculty members, Director of Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, and all. This year has been very special for our LL.M program. This is a class of over 250 students who have joined us in our residential LL.M program in 2021-22. This is possibly the largest residential LL.M class anywhere in the country ever in the history of legal education. And it's a moment of pride for me when I see the quality of students who are coming from almost every part of the country. The students who join our LL.M class, they come from 22 states and 3 union territories, almost entire country. The largest number of students, I just had a look, from Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Delhi, Karnataka, and Haryana, which contribute more than, say, 10 students each. The maximum from UP and Maharashtra, more than 30 students. But then we have received students even from smaller states like Sikkim and almost entire India. So it's a great moment for me personally. And in the history of postgraduate legal education, I will say it's a remarkable development. because I remember in 2010, we started our LLM program with a 5 students class. LLM was a 2-year program that in those times, and 5 students joined us in 2010-2012 batch. Today, when we have 250 students class in 2021, I remember those 5 students who studied with us. And of course, they are doing great. I know all 5 of them. One actually completed a PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University and working as a director in a civil society organization. One has become an assistant professor at a national law university. And I mean, there is one who worked with Tata Sons legal department and later on moved into the law firms and doing really very well as one of the, senior lawyer in a corporate law firm. So it's indeed a momentous occasion for me. If I look at specializations, we started with 3 specializations even way back in 2010 when we had only 5 students. Today we have 8 specializations in various areas of law. We have admitted 100 students class in our corporate and financial law. We have 60 students who are going to study intellectual property rights. We have another 40 who have chosen a general LLM program where they have liberty to choose their subjects and make their specialization. There are 25 students in alternative dispute resolution, ADR. There are students in taxation, in international trade and investment law, in competition law, in environment law, and climate change, where we have a smaller class of 10 students who have joined us. So in a way, I did my own LLM from University of Delhi some 15, 16 years back. And I remember the LLM program was meant to be a degree required for teaching. Today, when I see our LLM graduates, they are present in almost every law firm today, many in companies' legal departments. They have also chosen teaching and research. Many went to foreign universities like Zhejiang University in China on a full scholarship. This year, 2 of our LLM students who have gone to Brunel University, London in a double degree program with Brunel University in the UK. And they are actually making diverse career, and LLM program is no more a teaching degree. So before I end my, providing an analysis of the class, I must say I am extremely thankful to the University Grants Commission, which actually allowed a 1-year LLM program for the first time by a notification in early 2013, and Jindal Global Law School was the first law school to set up a dedicated center for postgraduate legal studies under the leadership of our present registrar, Professor Sridhar Patnaik, who is a part of this session. And we never look back. Today, for last 2 years, when the center is being headed by Dr. Vishwas Devaya, we are almost the most valuable, important LLM class anywhere in the country and whole of South Asia and maybe whole of Asia. So I'm extremely delighted, Hagrid sir, to have you. I'm meeting you after maybe 3 years, and such a delight to welcome you to our, it's an inspiration for our students to hear from you, because most of them are studying corporate law, IP, ADR, taxation, competition, international trade, and you as an individual lawyer, as well as managing partner of Ketan and Company, the firm, represent in a way corporate legal practice in all of these areas. So no one could have been a better inspiration for them to start their LLM class of 2021, starting with your lecture. So thank you so much, and it will be a pleasure to hear you.
Thank you, Anand. Over to you, Doleshri.
Thank you, Professor Rajkumar and Professor Mishra, for those very kind words and for welcoming the students to the new year. May I now request Mr. Haigreev Khaitan to please address the incoming batch of LLM students.
Oh, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you here today. I've been asked to share some thoughts on the state of the corporate legal profession and my insights on the evolution of Indian law firms. That's really a tall order to fill. I will gladly do so in the next few moments, but to the best of my abilities. But before that, I would like to thank the Jindal Global Law School, and in particular, Professor Rajkumar for giving me this opportunity. Jindal Global is a fantastic institution curating some of the most robust academic programs and, more importantly, preparing young lawyers to solve practical challenges they will face in their careers. So big congratulations to all of you to have chosen Jindal Global Law School for your master's program. I would also like to thank each one of you for being here today. More than ever, India needs good lawyers, and there's no better way to achieving that than by learning continuously. I would like to share with you a few of my learnings, pieces of wisdom, which I have gathered at different stages of my career. First, law is a peculiar profession which requires intellectual rigor and moral compass. Each of us contributes to doing justice and increasing the level of certainty in trade and investments. You should never lose your true north. Second, law is also a very demanding business, and those of you who have practiced before enrolling for this LLM program know that it takes a lot of resilience to go through the formative years. For those of you who haven't experienced it as yet, well, good luck to you. In fact, you must strive to perpetually learn. Learn law is an ever-evolving subject, and one has to digest new laws, regulations, and jurisprudence on a weekly basis, if not daily. Law is also an increasingly complex field. I will elaborate on this later in my presentation, but I can only say that in my father's generation, one had to have the capacity to master the laws across practice areas. In my generation, somehow specialized, and in yours, it may become super specialized. There are many ways one can learn. Academic pursuits like this LLM program. As lawyers, you will also need to read up. Continuous learning and development has become a major theme in law firms. One of the best ways to hone your skills is to, of course, learn on the job. The more you practice, the better you are. To me, the best ways to learn and to run a law firm have always been to observe and listen. Listen to your teachers, mentors, partners. Observe the way they behave with judges, clients, peers, seniors, and juniors. You must also take the time to genuinely listen to your colleagues and friends. Many have gone through very difficult times in the recent past. Reaching out is the best way to humanize our business. Another learning from my years of practice is that our profession doesn't necessarily need to be adversarial. You don't always need a winner and a loser in a negotiation. Be courteous, be pragmatic, defend your client's interests, and try to find solutions that achieve their strategic objectives without taking each matter as an opportunity to outsmart your counterparty's counsel. In fact, collaboration is more important than ever. Today, a successful lawyer deals with more and more stakeholders with blurred hierarchies, and so you will have to improve your soft skills, team up with competitors, learn to learn to deal with non-lawyers and also find common language. Our profession is at the crossroads today. We experienced rapid changes and expect to be impacted by even larger ones in the coming decades. We all anticipate that technology is going to be the biggest disruptor in our careers, at least for your generation. We don't know exactly what the shape and form will it be. So it's a known unknown, but it certainly is going to be a major impact. Let me remind you that all of these changes will create opportunities that the nimblest lawyers will seize. Your careers are unlikely to be as linear as mine. You may work part-time, you may take career breaks, move back and forth from private practice to in-house roles, join alternative legal service providers, dab into entrepreneurship, venture into something completely unrelated to the law. Overall, I'd say it's going to be a blessing. I would urge each and every one of you to remain curious, to keep learning throughout your professional journeys, to be open-minded and take risks. All of you have a bright future ahead of you, and this LLM program is a foundational block. I wish you all the very best. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And now, if you don't mind, I would suggest we take a look at how the profession has evolved over the years and look at the corporate law firms. So with that, I'll load my presentation and take you through my presentation. So let's start by looking at the evolution of the Indian corporate law firm. I hope my slides can be seen.
Can you make it slightly bigger, Hagri?
Yes.
By pressing. It can be the full, it can occupy the full screen, yeah. Full screen, yeah. Yeah, great.
So law post-liberalization has really become more and more complex. In the old times, the profession used to be a noble profession. And as a noble profession, you had advisors who were jack of all trades, and you had one single advisor advising a client who would actually deal with multifaceted streams of law. And that has really moved to a large business of law firms from small groups of individuals functioning together, and is soon moving to a very complex multidisciplinary practice. So let's look at the law firm of yesteryear. What was it really? A firm was a congregation of a few generalist practitioners, often from the same community or families. So people got together who knew each other to practice together. Our own firm started like a family firm. The organization of law firms was very hierarchical, very limited geographical footprint. Most law firms in the country, or in fact around the world, were limited to their own cities. In terms of work came your way. There was no soliciting for work or negotiating fees. Lawyers in firms did whatever came their way. Interaction with clients. Interactions was with really the owners of businesses. Businesses were much smaller, and beyond owners with senior management. In-house legal teams of companies did not perhaps exist, and even if they existed, there were very small teams to coordinate with the law firms. The lawyers were really trusted advisors. What were the services law firms were providing? Mostly litigation services and dispute resolution, some amount of commercial contract work. And the lawyers were really trusted advisors to businesses. They did their business advisory, family advisory, and it was really mixed in terms of the services that they rendered. Let me talk a little bit about, Khaitan and Company through the ages. How did the firm really start? The firm started as an alternate firm to the British firms. The firm started in 1911 in Calcutta, when Calcutta was still the capital of the country, and there were only British firms in the country. And in fact, my great-grandfather, who was the superintendent of jails, was actually told by one of the British jailers that you should get your sons to practice law because the Indian businessmen will need lawyers. And that's how the firm started, as an alternate to the British firms, a firm for the Indians, where they could help the Indian entrepreneur build its business. Soon, the firm diversified. It had a wide clientele, not just Indian businessmen. The firm saw counterparties who were multinationals and acquired some foreign counterparties as clients. The firm also sort of expanded, got in partners from outside, and shed very soon the family image. The firm was actually started by a member of the Constituent Assembly, which drafted the Indian Constitution, late Mr. Devi Prasad Khaitan. And from the very beginning, the firm acted on several very prominent matters, some of which I can talk about, like the Dalmia and the Jain case. There was a commission of inquiry, and then the same group which today controls Bennett Coleman and the Times of India group. Some of the other prominent cases and clients, the Birla family, including the famous Birla Lodha succession case going on. And these clients have been handed over generation by generation. Some of these clients have been clients of the firm from the very first day the firm is started. And of course, none other than representing Mr. Naveen Jindal in the famous flag case, Mr. Jindal fighting for the right to fly the Indian national flag. And the firm represented Mr. Jindal on that case. So how has our firm really been transitioning in this modern era? As I mentioned, started like a very small office in 1911. In one of the trips of our senior partner with a client to Washington, D.C., the US law firm actually told our senior partner that how come you don't have an office in the capital of the country? A law firm which really has to be or is to be a premier law firm cannot be a firm without an office in the capital. And that's what led to forming our Delhi office in 1970. Soon we saw the tech boom. The tech boom led to the Bangalore office in 1994, but we still kept away from the commercial capital, the financial capital of the country. It was a too competitive a market. There were very large established firms until 2001 when we formed our Mumbai office. And from a firm, let's say of a very small firm of 40, 50 lawyers, we kept growing, and today we are a firm of more than 800 lawyers, more than 180 partners across the offices. Let's look at some of the key changes in law firms today. Law firms have actually had to accept the fact that they are not just a profession, but law firms are also a business. They've had to accept the fact that they need to position themselves in the market, identify competitive advantages, showcase their services, and hunt for work rather than work to come through the door automatically. Law firms have realized that they need to offer solutions rather than just read the law, deliver concise advice, actually the shorter the better, and really find practical solutions. Law firms also have to be guided by financial metrics, profit margins, cash flow, and they really have to think about all of this as a business. What else has changed in today's law firms? The law firms have to be run by professional managers, by non-lawyers. and lawyers are kept busy actually lawyering, and a lot of non-lawyers are managing the firm. On the other hand, law firms remain peculiar for a variety of reasons. Law firms are a regulated profession, so we are still regulated by the Bar Council of India. For example, we cannot advertise, we cannot solicit for work. Most importantly, law firms owe a duty to the court. Some other peculiarities: law firm partners are key management personnel, but are also shareholders or stakeholders, which actually leads to a lot of governance challenges and the divide between management owning the firm and at the same time not running the firm. Lawyers are typically risk averse, highly skeptical. We are individualistic professionals, very difficult to challenge the status quo. And convincing them that collective efforts will result in a better outcome is very difficult. And this is extremely challenging to transform the individual lawyer into a law firm. And this challenge continues. And of course, law firms have limited access to external financing. So let's look at the changes which have happened in the law firms in the country and abroad. So law firms have over time expanded geographically and in terms of practice areas. Indian firms, the leading firms are all nationally present across the country. International firms are globally present across the world. Practice areas, the big firms have become full-fledged platforms with specialized practice areas. They've added depth to each practice group. Each practice group has become an independent practice area with a profit center, with ancillary support teams. Several niche practice areas have been developed, and global law firms have actually gone a step further. They are actually offering other services as well as consulting, lobbying, technology services, and so far as even concierge services. So what have been the strategic objectives in doing this? Strategic objectives being: one, smooth earnings, mitigate the risk of underperformance in any given market. And second, help cover large investments in office space, technology, and in new service lines. So like the global firms, Indian firms have followed suit, and our firm itself, we now are in 6 cities with one international office in Singapore, and we've also, as I will talk later, specialized practice areas. Indian law firms have really gone through, I would say, 2 golden decades since liberalization. We've been very fortunate to live through these very fortunate times. Khaitan and Company was late to the party, I should say, coming to the city of Mumbai in 2001. And we've always played a catch-up game, been an underdog, and we've had to really outpace the more established firms. How did we do it? Entrepreneurship and inclusiveness. We've really given partners a voice on the table. We have an elected managing committee. We have a single tier of equity partners. The family actually diluted their stake, and partners in other top law firms who had actually reached a glass ceiling saw this as a very attractive opportunity and moved over to the firm. A lot of international lawyers, returning talent, joined us from all over the world: New York, Singapore, Hong Kong, London, and today the firm has dual and triple qualified lawyers in multi-jurisdictions. The firm also attracted top professionals to manage the firm: HR, knowledge management, technology, finance, strategy, and all of these people joined us from different fields to help the firm sort of evolve. And we experimented and encouraged partners to take risks. So even during the pandemic, we've opened 2 new offices in Chennai and Singapore, and we keep investing in new practices and in technology. So where is the modern Khaitan & Company today? We are across practices, in different practice areas, specialized practices, but collaborating and working as one team. So while we are a corporate and commercial firm, we cover all of these practices. Let's look at how we incubated some of the niche practices. And this is no different from many of the other firms. One of the niche practices we incubated was the energy infrastructure and resources practice. Together with talent in finance, corporate, regulatory, litigation, really put them all together in a specialized group called Energy Infrastructure and Resources. Why did we do this? We really did this because this practice needs deep sector knowledge, needs deep regulatory knowledge. Another practice which we incubated was the employment, labor, and benefits practice. We were a practice which did very little labor and employment work, and we took people from our corporate practice, commercial practice, disputes practice, put them all together, and today I should say we have the leading employment, labor, and benefits practice, which runs as an independent practice across the firm and advises large to small clients, to financial sponsors, institutions, and has been extremely effective in providing services during the pandemic, where all sorts of new policies, work from home, and what to do, how to manage people have all been extremely useful. Another practice, for example, the tax practice. We again culled out professionals, built up a specialized tax practice. And when we say tax, not just one big tax practice, but within tax, specialized direct and indirect. And so much so, people within the practice are specializing in disputes or in cross-border tax investment advisory work or in restructuring. Let's look at some of the clients today of the corporate law firm. So clients have become increasingly sophisticated. What has emerged is the very powerful general counsel in most corporates and very large and competent in-house teams in the large corporates doing most of the work in-house. You need a better understanding of the value you deliver. The clients really know what they want from the law firm. The clients go beyond the firm's name, beyond the firm's rankings. They would research whom they really want to work with as an individual, which firm they want to work with. And so much so, we are finding many projects where clients are forcing firms to collaborate amongst themselves, several firms in different disciplines, or providers of services, alternative legal providers, and combine themselves with the big four and really render service to the clients. So clients have become increasingly sophisticated buyers, and autonomy has been given at various levels. In the law firm, you just cannot cover the general counsel. You have to build a relationship with top management. You have to build a relationship with the CFO and with the legal department. Pricing has become very important, and law firms have to equip themselves for pricing benchmarks, and involvement of procurement specialists who actually can price services in a profitable way for the client and also for the law firm. So I'd really say that, on the box on the right, I've just described that the cost to serve index versus willingness to pay index. You have a box which is actually available, and in terms of the strategy of the law firm, whether or not you want to provide, a law firm may be providing low-cost services, a law firm may be providing high-cost services, but depending on the willingness to pay of the client for that type of service, law firms are equipping themselves to that format. Let's look at some of the other aspects of today's marketplace. The services in law firms can be divided into different types, not just in terms of practice areas, but the type of work that one is doing. And what we call commodity work is the boilerplate work, low cost work. And there are law firms with this model evolving to do low cost volume work. There are other law firms which are actually doing slightly higher quality work in terms of what we call procedural work, implementing complex projects in several unrelated areas. And then we move further to gray hair work, where deciding on a major project where issues are ill-defined and where little experience exists. And finally, the rocket science work, which really needs top-end work for which top dollar payments are made. So law firms really specialize in different strata, and different law firms have put together a different strategy. Some who may be covering all of these spheres, and some who may be saying that, look, we will be a corporate law firm, but with rocket science work. We only want premium work. We will give rocket science delivery. There may be others who are doing commodity work and building volume. So there is a platform and an opportunity available for lawyers and law firms across the board. On the other hand, clients may have needs across the spectrum. No one size fits all, and we need to service all of these. Every relationship is different, and one needs to find the right levers, whether it's in terms of cost or whether it is in terms of that value added work. And a firm needs number of touch points within an organization to really cover all of this. When you're dealing with senior management and at the board, you probably need more on the rocket science and gray hair. When you're dealing with legal departments and process and compliance, you really need the commodity and process. But can each market be profitable? Yes, absolutely. Each of these can be profitable in a law firm, and it's really an evolving strategy of a law firm as to which strata of work the law firm wants to be in. Let's look at some more aspects of the marketplace today. Let's talk about pricing. Like any other marketplace, pricing of legal services also depends partly upon demand and supply. And it also depends on the value perceived by clients in the service that they are actually getting. For the longest time, modern law firms, ran a very hourly rate business, I should call it a risk-free business. And they really charged by the hour, on the meter, and sent clients the bill. The 2008 global financial crisis actually changed that drastically. Legal departments had to be accountable for their budgets. There was a lot of pressure on costs, and the market moved to a complete buyer's market. And the hourly rates, to a great extent, was considered to be inefficient, counterproductive, and alternate free arrangements were put in place. So very interesting as to how different models sort of evolved. What did we do as a firm? Well, we looked at the market and looked at the international market and the evolving market, and we looked at that, look, psychologically, clients value three things while discussing fees. Being given a choice, including on the fee arrangement, increasing the level of certainty on overall costs, and receiving regular updates from our lawyers. Indian law firms, of course, commanded slightly higher rates with international clients, because international clients were used to paying higher rates in their home countries. They perceived India to be a much more complex legal market. And also in terms of the importance on compliance with international clients gave. We also looked at premiumization. So in terms of demand and supply, looked at doing higher cutting edge work where the price would not be a key factor. And, like most global law firms, we could also stay away from hourly rates and charge on the basis of the value add. What else has changed in the modern law firm today? Discoverability, as I term it. This is an age where we have the legal press, we have media, and you know everything about everybody. If a client wants to actually find a lawyer, it goes on the net, goes through all of these publications, knows who the specialist is, where to go, not just the firm, but exactly which lawyer, what are the creds. And all of this is actually available very easily today. And there is a growing reliance amongst general counsel and clients on all of these publications. We have publications which rank lawyers. We have publications which actually rank individuals, practice-wise, city-wise, country-wise, and all of these help clients to make a choice. So it's really very easy. What does this do to the law firm and its practice? The law firm really needs thought leadership. It needs media interaction. It needs digital coverage. It needs digital presence. And it needs the ability to build a profile. Could we have thought of all of this a few decades ago? Never. So what is the law firm, the modern law firm, what is it doing? It's really reflecting on the firm's, of course, core, non-negotiable core beliefs, optimizing the firm's visibility externally and internally, of course, putting the client in front and center. But with all of this, the firm has to be the go-to firm. The individual in the firm has to be the go-to individual. So we have to really marry the key attributes of the firm, the beliefs of the firm, with also presence in the market. And presence in the market means that we have to be present and persistently, internally and externally, in one way, market our lawyers. From our law firm's perspective, what is our ethos? Our ambition statement has remained constant for over the last few decades to really be that respectable law firm providing efficient and courteous service. For us, it translates into some guiding principles. We want to be the dominant full-service commercial law firm in India and the firm of choice for our clients. We believe in offering a comprehensive suite of services. So we are a full-service firm. We see the whole firm much greater than the sum of parts. So there's a lot of collaboration in the firm, working together as partners. But at the same time, we value our independence. So we are an independent law firm. We are not tied up globally, and we are not yet, I should say, part of a global firm. How do we translate all of this in terms of attracting and retailing talent? So the firm's ethos, today's modern law firm has to talk about wellness, about caring about its people, especially during the pandemic. It needs to provide opportunities to work on intellectually challenging matters. If a law firm doesn't have challenging and new matters, I think there's no attraction for quality talent. How do we really select our people? So we have a very robust selection criteria. Technical skills, of course, are a given, but we look for attributes such as personality, attitude, and collegiality within the firm. Of course, the ability to take risks and progress. What else does a modern law firm look for? Cross-selling, encouraging partners to specialize in different areas, but actually cross-sell their practices. Not do everything, not be a jack of all trades, but be specialized, but collaboratively work with your partners. Also help institutionalize relationships. So a modern law firm today would cross-sell different services to a corporate client, passing on work to your specialized colleagues and partners. So we really need to collaborate within the firm and also outside the firm. Outside the firm, collaborate with accounting firms, investment bankers, other consultants, and really cherry pick partners from different practices to really collaborate to provide that cutting edge service to the client. So that's really the modern law firm. So different law firms, of course, look at compensation also in a different form. So as a law firm, we also have to look at what our compensation model is. Now, some law firms have what we call as a strict lockstep model, where depending on seniority and the number of years you progress in the law firms. And there are other law firms, what we call is who have the eat what you kill format, where depending on your billing, you really get compensated, and partners within the law firms are in. We recognize, team building, collaboration, client origination, execution, and really that long-term value provided within the law firm. Let's look at some of the competitive landscape within the Indian law firms. So Indian law firms are not only actually competing today with each other, but are also competing with other market participants. They're competing with in-house teams because in-house teams are actually getting stronger and stronger, can do a lot of work themselves. The big four actually have pseudo law firms beside them, and today's law firms are actually competing with the big four. Today's law firms are also competing with legal tech solution providers. In terms of volume work, a lot of the work can be done by tech companies in terms of templates, AI. There are alternate legal service providers, some captive to global firms and others independent. A lot of financial sponsors and private equity firms have actually incubated alternate service providers. And then, of course, we are also competing with international law firms. The domestic landscape is also quite competitive. There is a concentration of talent and, of course, the large firms. Some of the large firms have led to smaller firms being formed, and there is a emergence of the premium or the boutique firm as well. So on the one hand, law firms are growing in terms of the large firms with full service firms. On the other hand, you have breakaway firms which have boutique firms coming up. So law firms are really competing on multiple formats in terms of clients, in terms of talent, and you really need to work on every aspect to really create that premier Indian law firm. I want to spend a few minutes on how the law firm of tomorrow is going to look. So law firms have traditionally been very conservative, and they really adopt to change only when they think that they will extinguish. Otherwise, very difficult to change law firms. The 2008 financial crisis brought a tremendous challenge, and that's what got many law firms to change. COVID-19 has been another event which has forced law firms to change. Some law firms have reacted immediately, have changed very fast. Some law firms could not change. What were the changes brought about by COVID-19? Move fast, be nimble, adopt technology, work from home, look at renegotiating costs, look at different employment formats, part-time work, structural changes, and this has really taught us to be that modern firm. On the demand side, COVID-19 brought new legal challenges, looking at force majeure, looking at furlough, looking at new corporate transactions in terms of debt restructuring, looking at buybacks. There was a flurry of activity for complex work in law firms, and we all had to adapt to really this modern law firm. On the supply side, for I think a temporary period, we don't have enough lawyers to meet the demand. The market has changed temporarily, I should say, to a seller's market, no longer a buyer's market. But at the same time, law firms realize that they have to take care of their people, their most precious assets, the people. And they have to have wellness policies, compensation policies have to be different. And investment in technology, investment in data security, where everybody is really working from home. How do you really do that? And it is really some of the law firms who could adapt to these have survived the pandemic, have in fact progressed and grown beyond the pandemic. Let's look at how the law firms will look going forward. Let's look at technology, the role of automation, analytics, artificial intelligence, which is all to come. In fact, it has already come in law firms. Most law firms, the larger firms, have ERPs. Their entire practice is run on ERPs. They have a client relationship management software. They have collaboration tools. They have tracking systems, and they have document processing tools. So from an internal working perspective, the law firm of the future, which doesn't invest in technology, I guess just cannot survive. For the service delivery as well, clients today are looking for contract management, e-discovery, look at due diligence based on artificial intelligence. And again, this is going to be transformational on how law firms are going to cope and evolve to this. Another area for the law firm of tomorrow, new practice areas. It's a huge opportunity for the lawyers today. Practices such as fintech, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, data privacy are all new areas, and new areas where today's lawyers have to actually study these new laws and adapt themselves. So not only do they have to adapt to the use of technology, they also have to study and adapt to these new laws. Ability to draw resources for additional bandwidth, collaborate, work from home arrangement, lawyers on demand, using paralegals. These are going to be absolute attributes for the successful law firm for the future. So what lies ahead for the Indian law firms and for India? Well, I think the entry of foreign law firms, that's inevitable, that's going to happen. Will Indian law firms go global? I think that is again to be seen, whether we will have enough fire in the belly of Indian law firms to be able to do that. There is vulnerability from the big four to actually enter the legal practice, to have multidisciplinary practice. And the counsel practice, I think, will we go down the American way, where law firms will have lawyers who will also argue in court. Some law firms may even go down consulting, secretarial work, administrative work for family offices, providing tech solutions. So, what are the key takeaways? I'd say the good news is that most law firms are busy and busier than they've ever been. The lawyer of tomorrow has to be nimble, adapt to technology and new legal constructs. I would say the message for you is really that you have a very bright future ahead of you, with many, many new options and more options to have a fulfilling and not so linear career. Of course, working for a law firm is no longer the panacea. I think there are several options, which is good and bad for the law firm, but that's the reality. And even if you do actually work for a law firm, partnership is not an end in itself. There are several other very promising fields in which you can practice within the law firm. And even if you make it to the partnership, I said in the modern law firm, it will be the starting point of a new journey. So with that, I'll end, and of course, open to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Haigreve. What an extraordinary tour de force on the history and evolution of the legal profession, in particular the corporate legal profession. What an extraordinary exposition on the founding history of Khaitan and Company. I must say that I didn't know many things, and it was a huge learning experience for me, and I'm sure all of our faculty members and students who heard this. I must confess, in the beginning itself, I grieve. I'm very skeptical of PowerPoints, but I will tell you that this is one of the best PowerPoint presentations I've ever, watched. The only thing that it matched with was the one that Al Gore made on the movie The Earth. But you are in that league now, because the reason I mentioned this, that PowerPoints tend to kind of doesn't give the kind of human touch to the story that one narrates. But what you did is not only you made the PowerPoint interesting and engaging, but also you spoke from your heart and also shared your personal experiences. And I think it's quite extraordinary that, and many people don't know, and I like the mission of the firm, that making money alone is not the most important part of what the firm does. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why not only Ketan and Company was now by no means it's an underdog, but it was an underdog. And then there is a certain degree of what I call institutional humility that you have fostered in the broader and the larger world of law firms. So I must applaud you for your leadership and for the courage of conviction that helped you to build the firm's new age evolution. So with those words, I want to once again thank you for a fantastic commencement lecture. We couldn't have got anything better for all the students who got to see this, because we opened it up not only to our LL.M students, but also others. It would have been a treat. And thankfully, we have recorded this, so I'm sure others will get to watch it as well. While we are getting a number of questions, before I get to that question, one of the things that I want to ask you is that, the big question that the students of LL.M have, and I want to ask this in the most direct manner, is that, why is that Indian law firms in particular, and not just Ketan, but generally Indian law firms in particular, are obsessed with the 5-year law program students and have not taken the LLB program students, the 3-year LLB, like the ones I had studied in Delhi University, or for that matter, the LL.M students. Now, this is very uniquely in contradistinction to, let's say, law firms such as White and Case and Skadden Arps and Sullivan and Cromwell in US, or Herbert Smith and Clifford Chance and others in London, where they regularly admit, along with their JD students and LLB students, they do recruit, and there is a whole recruitment strategy and approach towards recruiting LL.M students. Why this has been the case more generally, and what do you think, you as MD of Ketan or founding partner of Ketan can do about it?
No, I think very interesting question, and you mentioned this, but I think there's a little bit of history to this, Raj. The history to this is that with the transformation of legal education in India, what started first was the 5-year program under the National Law School banner. And that led to a complete revolution, I should say, in legal studies and legal education. Now, law firms in the country, recruiting have that historical record that it is this 5-year law course, which is the robust law course for recruitment. The fact that institutions like yours is actually offering the 3-year course is not really very well known amongst law firms, because the belief is that the 3-year course is still available in colleges which may or may not offer that robust sort of program for law. Similarly, on the master's program, it's really Jindal Global Law School and some of the national law schools which reintroduced the master's program. Until then, again, in the study of law in India, the master's program was not valued at all. So I think it's a change which will come very soon, and law firms have taken note of it. And I think you will very well see that at least from the top law schools, both the 3-year and the masters, will be very much in demand. I can tell you the masters will be far more in demand, obviously, which they should be, than the 3-year and the 5-year.
Thank you very much, Hygreeve, and I appreciate your candidness in drawing that history, but also the kind of context in which this has emerged. The second question that has also come about is that, in today's situation where you mentioned about the changes that are taking place, to what extent specialization before entering legal profession matters, or in many ways, firms are looking at people who are more flexible, because the subject matter of specialization is also an evolving trend. There are different markets and different economic climates in which different areas of practice might gain prominence. And so one of the things that students are also conscious of is that should they specialize? And you mentioned about super specialty. What are your thoughts on that, Hygreeve?
I think, Raj, notwithstanding the need for super specialization, I think the best lawyer is the one who does his foundation as a generalist and then super specializes. I would really rate that as the best probable experience of a lawyer, and the most successful. There will be exceptions. Now, super specialization very early will probably limit the scope of a lawyer, and also with the changing world, if that practice goes down, the lawyer might really be ill-equipped to handle any other situation. So what I do think super specialization is to come, and it will be in demand. And with the complexity, you just cannot be a super specialist across different practices. But a group of lawyers coming together to really offer super specialized services under one roof is, I think, the future. But at an undergrad level, I would still think, and the first few years of practice, probably a generalist will give that foundation, which is really required. So it's more like a multi-speciality hospital. You go to a hospital where you want to meet the super specialists, but how do they get there without studying general medicine? Can they really get there?
Absolutely, and I think that's a very important part of it, because students need to understand that, because some students do tend to have this probably misplaced impatience to enter into that super specialization early on, thinking that that might just help. But I take your point. There's another very interesting question. This is regarding the kind of choices that one makes. You mentioned that today somebody can move from, let's say, an in-house counsel job to a law firm world, and then do other things as well. In real life, has this happened? And more importantly, the question is that to what extent firms are prepared for it? Meaning, does it seen as a sort of a retention challenge, or it is seen as a welcome trend where their experiences that are gained in the firm can be useful elsewhere, and after all, they can possibly be these networks will be helpful in the future as well?
A very interesting question, Raj. And I'd say if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I would say that if I left the firm to go to a corporate or to set up a VC fund and then come back to the profession, I would be looked down upon. I would be looked at as, look, this guy is not serious. His heart and mind is not there on the job. Today, it's looked at as an advantage. It's looked at having diversity, having experience, having the business side, having the practical side, knowing finance, knowing the applicability of the law. Obviously, at some point in time, a professional needs to settle down somewhere and have stability. But the diversity in experience, whether it is in terms of different areas of work or whether it is in-house or in a business and then back to a law firm, I think is invaluable today. And I heard Professor Mishra earlier talking about somebody who was in-house, who was external, and then went to Tata Sons and then back. And I would say he's one of the most successful professionals today with diverse experience. And what he probably saw on the business side in Tata Sons, many of us has not seen. And we don't know how to actually look at problems differently or look at problems from a solution perspective.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I agree. There are many more questions. I know I'm conscious of the time, so I'll pick up a few. One of the questions that has come is that this is a question about comparisons of the evolution of law firm culture in India and other, let's say, developed markets. As somebody who has seen the international law firm ecosystem, what would you say about the state of the Indian corporate law firm culture? I suppose this particular question is also talking in terms of the partnership structure, to what extent equity partnerships are emerging, and how this is also impacting the kind of ability to attract the best talent that is available to become part of the Indian law firms.
Yeah, so historically, law firms were family owned, and that had its own culture in India, where you had the family, and then whether you called others as partners or non-partners, everybody was definitely several notches below. And that led to a certain culture in law firms. Internationally, law firms also were started by individuals, may not be hierarchical like a family, but started by individuals or by a group of individuals. Most law firms have nameplate partners or had nameplate partners at some point in time. Now, this culture, I should say, in India has changed and is changing dramatically, where law firms are becoming more and more professionals, equity has been given out, and some law firms would be truly professionally owned and managed. Some law firms are in that evolution phase, and some law firms, I should say, are going through that tunnel where transforming from a family firm to a more professional firm. Having said all of this, is there a room or is there room for a different cultural law firm? Yes, there is room for everybody. There is room for a truly professional firm with a very close-knit, collaborative culture, and there is room for, let's say, a dominant partnership with a successful team around it. And there is room for a very small firm as well, maybe like a sole proprietorship. So today, I should say there is room for everybody. Depending on the client and the strata of work you want to be in, you can probably adapt to the firm you want to be and adapt your culture accordingly. We as a firm have chosen to be a truly professional firm. Started, as you saw our journey like a family firm, but today no longer a family firm, but that's a path we chose. So different people can choose different paths and be equally successful.
Well, thank you very much, Shaigreeb. And there are a few more questions, and I'll take them. One is, of course, a very obvious question, which I'm sure you can answer it very well. This is about the question about to what extent COVID-19 as a pandemic has affected the law firm world. While we all know that the entire economic structure, including the various corporations, companies, business enterprises have all had a significant impact, to what extent law firms have impacted, and secondly, how the future looks for firms in India, law firms in India.
So the COVID-19 has really been something unexpected for the law firms, and that has, I should say, now with 15 to 18 months in the pandemic, has sort of created a divide in the law firms in India between the have-nots and the have-its, I should say. The law firms which transformed to technology, to working from home, to give people the flexibility, to have engagement with the people, have done exceedingly well, because they've adapted to new areas of work, they've adapted to technology, and they've been ready to deliver to the client. The client, on the other hand, today has had much more complex needs, which it has never had before. The issues which came up during COVID-19 never came up before. So they were very challenging. And there were a certain set of law firms, I should say, which adapted to this. And then there are some of the other firms which said, this is a pandemic, what can I do about it? And I think that divide has increased. So very interestingly, one should say that, look, some law firms have done well and are very busy during these times. And there are others who feel that, look, the pandemic has hit them very badly. Of course, in some areas such as disputes, while courts have adapted very well, some courts have adapted very well to digital hearings, some courts have not. And in some cases, lawyers and firms which have been very focused and specialized in areas which didn't adapt to digital have also suffered. So it's been a very mixed bag. And that's what I should say, the modern law firm ability to adapt and move is the future. Your second part of the question about, the law firm for the future, I feel it's all about learning processes and technology. So I think it's the innovative learning of the lawyers, adapting to new laws on a daily basis, the way laws and rules are changing virtually daily, and then adapting to technology. I think that's the future.
Thank you very much, Haigreve. And I'll probably take up the last question, which I think is probably one of the more, I would say, difficult questions, but let me still give it to you. This is about something that you have talked about in the past. How do you see the future of what the question is asked in terms of the presence of international law firms in India? This whole idea has been in discussions for a very long time now. The best friends model, there have been talks about different type of collaborative endeavors, and then of course flying in and flying out type of models. Many ideas have been floated, many organizations including courts have been involved, but in terms of the overall approach towards globalization of the Indian legal profession, how do you see this issue of international law firms doing work in India?
Personally speaking, I think the international law firms, there's no reason why they should not be in India and should not be allowed in India. Who's going to be the biggest beneficiary of this? I think it's going to be the Indian lawyers. The Indian lawyers are the ones who will have tremendous opportunity to work in international firms, domestic firms, work globally, get much deeper and richer experience. And who's going to benefit? We as Indians are going to benefit. So I really can't understand why we are really holding up, opening up of this regulatory impediment of allowing the international firms. There may be, I should say, a few vested interests, and maybe the Indian brands, some of them will survive, some Indian brands may not survive as law firms, but I think generally it will do very well for the profession. If you really look at a comparison of the English and the American market, English lawyers, if you really ask them, did they do better after the market was opened up to the American law firms, or did they do worse? There was a lot of skepticism as to whether the English market should open up. And today there won't be a single English lawyer who's worth his salt to really say that, look, I've done worse. The lawyer has done much better by opening up. So I think we are really arguing about nothing.
Thank you, Haigreve. Well, this could be headline news if people are watching. But I must say that you are one of those law firm leaders who have been, not only maintaining intellectual integrity on some of these issues, but also so candidly supporting it. In fact, another huge beneficiary of this is the students themselves. The graduates of Indian law schools will have more and more opportunities for having to work in firms. And I think, as you said, this will also create healthy competition for delivery of good quality services. So I appreciate all what you said. We have, of course, come to the end of this fascinating commencement lecture. I am so grateful to you. Again, as I said, it's one of the best lectures that I have had the privilege to listen to. Your PowerPoint presentation was compelling. Your exposition of that PowerPoint was deeply inspiring. And of course, your patience and candidness in responding to the questions have been truly remarkable. So thank you very much, Mr. Ketan, for that. We now come to the few closing components to it. But before we do that, I'm going to invite, maybe Dolashri, why don't you take over from here as we move towards the end of this program?
Thank you, Professor Raj. Thank you, Mr. Khetan, for that wonderfully exciting and engaging, commencement lecture. I'm sure many of the audience really sort of enjoyed listening to how the firm has sort of traversed through history, and particularly also how we've, you've been sort of involved with various, big moments, right, in India, from drafting of the constitution and things like that. So thank you very much for that. And thank you, Professor Raj, for asking those very pertinent questions to Mr. Khetan. I would like to invite Professor Vishwas Devaya, the Director of the Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, to sort of talk about the LLM program and give our students a brief overview of what the next year looks like. Professor Vishwas, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dolashri. My job, thank you, Mr. Khetan, for that lovely presentation. My job here is to introduce CPGLS for the uninitiated. Quite a few students have managed to kind of attend our pre-semester immersion program, so they would know what CPGLS stands for. But for a lot of parents and relatives who've joined us for this live session, CPGLS is established primarily to offer advanced and interdisciplinary teaching, learning, and research opportunities for postgraduate students, thereby creating an intellectually stimulating academic environment with highly qualified, experienced, and dedicated faculty members committed to provide an excellent and world-class legal education. The one-year LL.M program is developed to impart Indian and global perspectives on aspects of corporate and finance, intellectual property and technology law, international trade and investment law, alternative dispute resolution, competition law, taxation law, and general legal studies. Keeping in view the vision of the OP Jindal Global University to provide globalized legal education, the LL.M program aims to equip students with skills to conduct research on legal issues from a global perspective, enabling them to think, innovate, and apply their knowledge to emerging global legal issues. And as my colleague, Professor Anand, when he actually introduced the batch of 2021, he said the major USP of the program is its diversity. And we take this diversity into a classroom environment wherein the idea is to kind of have diverse perspectives when the classroom discussions are happening. And CPGLS, along with the law school, facilitates this diverse discussions to happen in the classroom by putting in experienced professors who have, dabbled in practice, who have been academics for several years. Some of them have been judges in international forums. So that's the aim of CPGLS, where we try to blend in both theory and experience in a classroom environment. And lastly, we are not merely a center that just deals with academics. academic affairs, we also have a strong team to deal with student welfare. So we have a strong student affairs team. We have a strong, setup wherein, our faculty members will help you out in careers and placement related issues as well. And we work very closely with our English language center and writing centers to help our students to kind of breeze up to this modern version of legal practice and legal profession. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Professor Vishwas. I would now like to invite Professor Sridhar Patnaik, the Registrar of the University, for some closing comments. Over to you, Professor Patnaik.
Thank you very much, Dolashri. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. And indeed, a delightful experience listening to Mr. Haigreve Khaitan. Being a public international lawyer, I could learn a lot this evening listening to Mr. Khaitan. And we could not have asked for more in terms of either the topic or the area chosen by the speaker, which more suitably captures the contemporary developments in law and legal practice, and even the philosophy or the idea of studying law and pursuing higher education in law. And the entire talk is so much in harmony with the ecosystem at the Jindal Global Law School and also the university, which is, I always keep mentioning, admirably steered by our Dean and Vice Chancellor, Professor C. Rajkumar, and the interdisciplinary faculty members that we have, comprising of sociologists, anthropologists, and lawyers, of course, and engineers, all of which is going to augment very well for our LLM candidates pursuing variety of areas or specializations. And we are immensely grateful to Mr. Khaitan, a dear friend of the law school, for taking time out of his busy schedules to be with us and to share his lived and insightful experiences with all of us. I also take this opportunity on behalf of all my colleagues at the university to congratulate students who have joined the one-year LLM program. And as a university, we place emphasis on quality learning opportunities for professionals, and we are committed to your academic curricular and professional integration. And the LLM program is an important component of that particular commitment. And needless to say, you already heard about the history and the evolution of the program at the JGLS, and also its importance and significant place in the Indian legal higher education realm. And most importantly, as remarked even by Mr. Khaitan, your career success will require specific skills and development of competencies and continuing education and relationships and network building, and importantly, your credibility and professional image. And all these opportunities you could acquire by being a part of the Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies at the JGLS, and the LLM program will help you augment all your skill sets. And in the world we all live in, you will agree that knowledge is more important, and thus higher education. In fact, as Vishwas rightly said, this is a diverse class, and the LLM program sets the right platform for interesting learning times because, as we heard from even Anand, the class of 2022 itself will have a cumulative knowledge and grand years of experience that will make the classes lively, discursive, and engaging, which is again in consonance with the graduate attributes and the philosophy of the Jindal Global Law School and the JGU. And I can assure you, my dear friends, that it will be a fascinating experience studying at the university because the university that we are all part of is such a place which is full of ideas and eloquence and bonhomie, and this egalitarianism and the approach of the student-centric learning that we take up is going to make your learning a more engaging and a more enriching experience. While 1 year is relatively a limited time, but I can tell you, you can still do a lot. So I will suggest you to focus on your long-term planning and benefit from the learning opportunities that we provide both within the classroom and also outside the classroom and within the realm of university life. In closing, I once again wish to thank the commencement speaker, Mr. Haigriv Khaitan, for readily agreeing to talk to all of us. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Dean, the Executive Dean, the Vice Dean, and the entire leadership of the Law School and the Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, supported by the administrative staff members who had worked very hard to curate this wonderful program. And it's a collective effort. And in all earnest, I might have missed taking out the names of few individuals of few departments, but I sincerely want to thank the efforts of everyone. That includes the faculty members and the staff members of the Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, and also, most importantly, the Office of the Admissions and Outreach, and the Office of Information Technology and Communications, and the Office of the Registrar, and the Office of the Vice on a successful start of the new academic year. Thank you so much. The program has ended now.